Okay. I think we're just going to carry on. Shall we do that with what we discussed before?
Yes, that's good.
Did you have any clarity about it? Did it make any sense, or are you a bit confused? Yes. Yes, question. Yeah. Question. You got a question? Is that a hand up? No. Okay. So, listen, the key thing to begin to understand, which is what always sounds so confusing to us, is this business of investigating in meditation and throughout your life as accurately as we can what we think this I, independent I, that we cling to so strongly appears like. This is the part, so to do this, I mean, even to understand these words, if we're talking theory here, to understand these words, you absolutely have to first start with karma. Then you have to start with understanding the mind. If you don't understand the Buddhist view of the mind, and when we're trying to talk about it, this will make absolutely no sense. You can look for 42 eons for the I, as you hear the teachers say, let's look for the I, let's see if we can realize emptiness. Nothing will, you just don't know what you're talking about, you just go mad. It's such a precise thing, and that's what we don't think, I think. We think it's spacish and blah and blistical, mystical and whatever. But it's something unbelievably precise. So, okay, so with Mahamudra, because, as I was saying, the mind beginning to focus on the consciousness, which is initially the berserk thoughts, and then to have them to be steady so that we can then experience the clarity of the mind, and that itself is quite subtle. That itself is subtle. That's the conventional nature of the mind, they say. And that's often mistaken to be Mahamudra. And you can have extremely powerful experiences with that. But it can be easily mistaken for what's called Mahamudra. Mahamudra is realizing the emptiness. Emptiness. And here, so they talk in general about Mahamudra being the emptiness of the mind. But as it is with Panchen Lama and as Lama Yeshe, they're always describing the emptiness of the self. So there you are in concentration on the mind. Then when your mind is steady, you go to the second mode of meditation, and now you cultivate this subtle part of your mind, a subtle wisdom, that then needs to be watching like a hawk for how this I appears to us. But it's a really precise, really clear, really disciplined exercise. This is why the opposite, we think the opposite about meditation. We think it is about big space, no thoughts. There's so many misconceptions. But if you have some understanding of the way the mind works, as we've been describing, according to Buddhist psychology, not according to Freud, not according to neuroscience, absolutely fundamentally, crucially different. We're trying to observe the very thoughts themselves. Unless we understand what we're saying, this has no meaning. For example, our approach to understanding our feelings, first of all, we think of them as feelings, and it's true. And we think of it as physical, and it's true. When you're angry, you're definitely having a physical experience. Anyone can see it. You're shouting, tears are coming, you're shaking, your heart's beating fast, the blood is racing. That's extremely physical. Now, the trouble is we don't notice extreme anger until that happens. Or let's say you're depressed. That's the inverted aversion. You don't notice that until you can't get out of bed one morning, maybe. And in each case, they are simply the gross tip of the iceberg symptoms of what is going on in your mind, which is not physical. But we only notice it when it connects with the body, because that's all we pay attention to. Do you hear that point? This is massively important. And this is the materialist view. Now, secondly, you can be a genius neuroscientist. You can be a brilliant neuroscientist and study and map the mind via the brain. That's incredible. That's fantastic knowledge. But what if when you're angry and you've never heard of a brain, and even if you do know there's a brain, if you haven't studied neuroscience, you know But who cares if you study the brain or not? It doesn't help you know the anger. It doesn't help you 1 millimetre have an experience of anger, does it? It doesn't help you understand the anger. It doesn't help you to deal with the anger, does it? You see my point here? Because it's so experiential. If you interpret the brain, that's fine. But if you sit in the middle of the anger, what good is that? The neurosurgeon telling us a bit over here doing this and electric over there and doing that. Thanks. Meanwhile, I want to kill you. So the experience of anger, first of all, we think it's physical, and there is a physical experience. No one's arguing. But the anger itself is not physical. And why there's a physical experience using the Buddhist model, as I've been saying, from the Vajrayana, because all the different states of mind are coursing along with these wind energies throughout the 72,000 subtle channels. Yeah, sure. Who's heard of that? Nobody. But this is the Buddhist model. So like I said, with the Tibetan doctor, she feels the imbalance of the wind, and she knows it's related to your anger energy. She feels this imbalance of that wind, and she knows it's related to your attachment energy. Because all the states of mind are linked to their own winds, and they're intimately connected. So the mind is not physical, it is the cognitive process. All these emotions, which we call physical and feelings, are based upon, deep in our bones, the habit of having certain, they are themselves, anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, all of these, love and compassion, are all precisely able to be identified, elaborate conceptual stories that then impact upon the body, that cause the tears to come and the feelings and blah, blah, blah. So to be recognising the feelings, I'm very happy, but it doesn't help you understand anger, not one fraction. And it doesn't help you understand how you change anger, because how you change anger is recognising it as the cognitive story, and the story says, how dare you do that to me, I don't deserve it. That's a statement of anger. If you read those words, you can go, she's angry. You know, that's mine, don't take it. There's attachment. How dare you, that's my boyfriend. She's jealous. I'm more important than you. That's pride. I'm a creep. That's low self-esteem. We recognise by reading the words because they're cognitive stories. But we're so addicted to the feelings of the body that we get completely thrown, you know. And then the other thing that throws us is because we are totally, completely and absolutely brainwashed and addicted to believe by our own ego, don't blame your Jewish mother or your Jewish father or your Catholic mother or anybody else, or the scientists, that the cause of my anger is him. So when we look for the anger is the feeling, and when we look for the cause is him. So that's just completely not the analysis Buddha has. He says you're looking in the wrong place. Yes, your boyfriend is a creep, there is no doubt. Yes, the guys that want to drop bombs on you, there is no doubt. Okay, he has an explanation for why, past karma, that's another discussion that informs your ability to know your mind, if you want to use that. But in terms of simply knowing the mind here, we don't need to worry about karma. It just increases your ability to understand why. To understand anger, you have to learn to get some concentration so that you can step out of your head, so that throughout the day, not on your cushion looking holy, you can start to hear this constant, insane series of thoughts. They're called thoughts, right? In your mind. Like this undertone, isn't it? Not constant, non-stop. And we don't normally pay attention because we just think, that's the unconscious. That's just the way life is. You know? And when they get strong, that's when they come to the surface. We start to hear them more loudly, and then the stress happens because the body's involved and we can't stand the pain of it. And then because all the delusions and erotic stories are all the states of mind, all the mental states, all these conceptions in our mental consciousness at the level we function in this human body with the world and people and things out there, they're all necessarily dualistic. So when I say, I have love, you have love for people out there. Now that's valid. There's some semblance of connectedness there. That's valid. Then we have attachment for someone out there, and that's not valid because it's delusional. It believes I'm a separate me who's miserable and blurred. That's a person over there and divine delicious. When I get them, I'll eat them up and I'll feel better. So all the delusions are like vampires. Their own variation, you know. They're all connected to the outside, and then they're the cause of my anger. They're the cause of my anger. So when I'm dealing with my anger, please tell me about your anger, Robina, and I'll give you a detailed analysis of David and his behaviour. That's true, but that's true, isn't it? Literally true. And that's what I've told my therapist. So then she will naturally inquire, and this is helpful, she will naturally inquire, more about me and my habits and how I think and feel. And then start investigating my background and what mummy did and what daddy did, and then maybe my brain and my chemicals and my DNA, because that's the only place we can look, because that's our philosophical model, is it not? And our scientific one. So that's why I keep saying this, not to be fundamentalist and say it's all wrong. I'm trying to analyse it, to compare with the Buddhist approach, so you get to understand the Buddhist approach. So yes, my boyfriend is mean to me. That's a fact. Yes, my mother's loving and generous and kind. That's a fact. But in both cases, or whoever the object of your attachment is, who does lovely things to you, we assume they're the cause of my feelings, and the person who does mean things, they're the cause of my feelings. So that's why we always analyse the objects. We don't even realise, tell me about your anger, Robina, and I'll give a detailed analysis of Andy David. We don't even realise we're not discussing anger, we're discussing the object that we see through our anger. So it's hard for us to even know, what do you mean, talk about my anger? It feels like this. But it's conceptual. This is not a shock and surprising, but we don't kind of join the dots. Let's just say David is a very peaceful person, but he's not volatile, he doesn't shout and yell, and lots of you will be like that. But if you listen to your thoughts, you've got a lot of negative thoughts. Always criticising, always upset, always negative, guilty, or whatever it is, but it's like negative thoughts. But you don't shout them. So people don't think that you're an angry person. So let's say you very kindly write down all your negative thoughts, what you think about the people here, what your mother-in-law did, and that kind of thing. And you write it all down, and they're very negative thoughts, they're very angry thoughts, let's say. But you don't shout them. They're just thoughts. You write them down on a piece of paper. Now let's say, you see somebody have an angry fit and they're shouting and yelling and screaming, and you transcribe their words. Now you'd have two pieces of paper, right? Wouldn't you? One from the shouting person and one from the quiet person. Now maybe even without names on them, the person who's quiet, maybe their thoughts are more violently angry. That's possible, isn't it? Yeah. Could you hear my point here? So what I'm getting at is, that points to what anger actually is. Thoughts. It actually is thoughts. Hear that. But this is a shock initially. But they're thoughts. They're thoughts. They're elaborate conceptual story, a description of the person or the thing that you hate. That's thoughts. They're thoughts. They're thoughts. They're concepts. And Buddha says there's some truth in it. Yes, David did do that. That's about the only truth in it. The rest is my distorted, exaggerated, panic-stricken, description of him. How evil, his monster, this, I'll kill him, how dare, blah, blah, blah. They're thoughts. That's the Buddha's point. So that's why you've got to get some concentration. So you can not calm your mind down, make all the thoughts go away. Steady your mind, focus, so that you can, and it would be a bonus if you can steady the concepts and have a quiet meditation. That's great, because as you get concentration, you will, just like Lama says. But that's not making all the thoughts go away. That's temporarily subduing them, so that you can develop this fine, refined focus, so that then in your daily life and seriously in your meditation, you can start to do real unpacking and unravelling and identifying of these conceptual stories. So right now, they're like all unedited stories, all mixed together like chaos. We can't, and also in Western psychology even, and same with Buddha, they say there's like 1,000 thoughts a second. So we can't catch up with them, there's so many and they're so chaotic. So that the concentration, so they can stop being so chaotic, so that we can then identify them and identify the weeds from the flowers, so that we can do the analysis of them and the changing of them, the arguing, the good ones argue with the bad ones. So what does that do? That's the process of weakening the angry story. When kindness and patience in my mind, if I'm seriously working on my mind and my relationship with David, and I'm doing the Buddhist approach, I would do my concentration meditation. I'll be crazy because we have that fight, but I'm doing my concentration. There's no question my thoughts are going berserk, but that's okay. I recognise that. I'm not scared of them. You want to hear them. So then I've calmed my mind down, and then I'm doing an analysis to myself in my own natural way of talking to myself. This is not necessarily formal meditation. Don't think it always is. It's just the way you work with your mind. So there I am talking to myself. And now I've got the view of karma, and so I've got the view about the Buddha's view of the mind. I know that anger is just exact, and I've got my tendency, and it's an exaggerated assessment of his actions, which is based on attachment, which is based on ego grasping. I've got this analysis down. So the more I have that analysis, the more I can psychologically argue with anger. because I know it's coming from my craving to get what I want. So even if the anger's there, I might argue more with the attachment, telling myself, well, no, it's just because attachment's there like this junkie that wants what it wants every second, and the anger's a response when it doesn't get what it wants. You're talking to yourself, and so you're believing in this. This is your theory, and this is the theory you're working with. You're being your own therapist here. You're giving yourself advice. So the intelligence and the wisdom which understands those things, informed by your knowledge of karma, informed by your knowledge of the mind, then argues. That's your wise thoughts in here. They're arguing with your crazy thoughts, your poor little crazy girl in there. And then the consequence of that is that this is how you change your mind day by day. You're strengthening wisdom. Then I even conclude, okay, just let it go. You know what he's like. It's just the way he is. He's not really looking at other people. It's all right, blah, blah, blah. Then you let go, you relax, and you decide to say nothing. That's a little session in yourself using concentration and insight, but in an informal way. You're just talking to yourself. We do this all the time. But here we're doing it more proactively, more consciously, every second, based on the Buddha's model, which is the one chooses to use as one's basis. Are we communicating? It is not mystical. So not only do you wish all your thoughts would go away, you actually want to recognize them, because they're the problem. And just having a temporary, absence of them, which is a nice experience, there's no doubt. But in the end, even when you have got single point of concentration and you have effortless control over all the thoughts, now your real work starts to subdue the delusions and then to get to the root delusion, so you can use wisdom to argue with its misconception, so you can realize emptiness. Are we communicating? This is what being a Buddhist should look like every day, in casual terms. There's nothing, but we're so obsessed with this business of sitting on the cushion for 20 minutes with your eyes closed, like as if that's Buddhist, and everything else is just being ordinary. It's demented. It's not like that at all. So, back to Mahamudra.
Can we ask questions?
Yes.
Where are the thoughts coming from? I do understand if you have an object and then, playing.
What do you mean? So, okay, good. The exact question. Can you please, what do you mean exactly by that question? Where are they coming from? What do you mean by that? Sorry.
If I start to meditate, stuff comes up.
Your mind, your thoughts, that's right. That's right.
Where are these thoughts coming from?
But I don't know what the coming from means. What does this mean? I don't get the concept coming from. Okay, first of all...
How do they appear? Where do they appear from?
In your mind. First question. The first answer is in your mind. They're not in my mind, are they? They're in your mind. In your mind, roughly speaking, we know that it's in this body over there. That's a pretty good way to look. First answer to that. So you're asking, what you're really asking is, why do they pop up? What compels them?
Without the object. So I do
very
understand
simple.
if David
They're habits, sweet. They're habits. That's habits, that's all. Very simple. They're habits. That's all. They're habits. That's all. They're habits. That's it. That's why. The monkey, when he gets born, whatever the monkey, whichever one it was, like sex, born, programmed with all these primordial habits, which are based on thoughts from eons of lifetimes or whatever, and then we call it instinct. So then straight away, he hops out of mummy's womb, turns around and has sex with her. That's based on the conceptual story of attachment to sex.
Okay,
It's so primordially programmed in that monkey. The monkey doesn't have thoughts, it's not a joke, but it's all conceptually based. Habits. So instinct, what we call instinct, is when we do things automatically, isn't it? We call it instinct. We agree? And we tend to think there's just sort of, oh, that's just instinct. But the analysis of instinct is the result of having thought and done those things many times before.
So these are karmic imprints then?
That's one of the words for them. Yeah. Habits. But even more simple, habits that leave the impression. Yeah, just habits. Yeah.
Let's say I host someone in my house.
You do what?
I host someone, I have a host in my
Yes,
house.
right.
And he steals from me.
That's right, exactly. So
I
then,
would get very angry. Now
that's
what?
right. So then the question is,
So I understand
What's the
I go
question?
with all this possession, but then I say it's okay that he steals from me.
what's the question? What's the question, darling? What's the question?
I
Fine.
understand
Yeah.
for me, it
Uh-huh.
means that
Huh?
to
You want?
why am I angry? He took my
No, not
food.
why. No, I didn't say that ever once. Never once. I didn't say that. That's what we think in the West. I didn't say those words.
So
You mean I'm talking about analysing the conceptual thoughts called anger. So you're asking the question, why would I want to do that? That's your question, isn't it? You know, you say spontaneously you have the habit to be angry. It's natural that if someone steals, you get angry. So then I'm talking here about listening to my own thoughts, and then I'm angry with my husband, let's say, and I'm then doing an analysis. Then I'm doing an analysis. Then I'm doing an analysis of the thoughts. So your question would be, well, why would I want to do that? That's really what you're saying, because you're saying that anger is natural.
But does it mean that I agree with
No, just a moment, please. Is that your question? Why would I want to analyse the anger? Is that your question?
Yes.
Is that your question? Because anger hurts you. That's
Right.
right.
Okay.
Wait, stop, please.
Okay.
Because anger hurts you. And then we do the analysis, not why do I get angry? I know why I get angry, because it's the habit. The West says, why do I get angry? And it's his fault. That's wrong analysis. I get angry. You get angry because you have a habit to be angry when your attachment doesn't get what it wants. And you have the habit to be attached to get what you want because you have a belief in the self-existent I. So this hierarchy of these misconceptions in the mind are why you get angry. And in the past life from stealing with this person, that's why they steal from you. They're the Buddhist answers. So you know that you can get rid of these illusions and you can stop treading negative karma so no one will ever steal again and you'll never be angry again. That's why you do it. No other reason.
Okay.
That's the answer. That's the Buddhist answer.
Be stealed from?
What?
Yes.
So,
What?
I'm trying to understand, except for does it have any connection to the deeds? Like, so now everybody can steal from me.
Sweetheart, the reason we get angry when someone steals from us is because we're attached to our possessions.
Okay.
So attachment's the problem. And the reason we have attachment is because the ego grasping, the root delusion, wants to get what it wants all the time. It doesn't like people offending me and hurting me and being angry with me. So that's the analysis of all the delusions. And the Buddha says they're the cause of your suffering. The thief and the David boyfriend are the secondary causes only. But in the West we think they're the main causes. That's our problem. So we're not looking at the right cause.
Actually, I think what I'm asking is,
Yes.
am I allowed to do something about this? Should I go to the police?
There's no one telling you what to do. Allowed has got nothing to do with it. No one's your boss. You have to decide, depending on where you're at in your own progress, how you want to deal with this. You have to decide. That's your call. But it has to be based on wisdom and virtue, otherwise you just hurt yourself more. That's why dropping bombs on the Gaza people, doesn't help. Or then it doesn't help, it just perpetuates it. You get born in the next lot, then you'll hate all the next people. It goes on for eternity, Buddha says. So we've got to be wise, use your common sense, be intelligent, stop the thief if you can. But that's why if you develop your mind and get less angry and less attached, you still deal with the thief, but it's out of kindness for the thief because they're harming themselves.
Yeah,
So it's progressive, but it's not like that. Let's see what Mother says about. Are we more questions here?
When we sit on the cushion and observe our thoughts, are we supposed to...
No, it depends on whether... No, that's not necessarily what you're doing on the cushion. So why don't you tell me what you think you'd be doing on the cushion?
No,
that's not necessarily the answer. Pardon?
Specifically in a meditation when we're
Which
observing
meditation?
the mind.
Which meditation?
When observing the thoughts in the mind.
Are you talking about concentrating on the mind?
Yeah.
No, you're not observing the mind. You're concentrating very fiercely. You can say observing, but it's not sort of just like abstractly watching what happened. It is that, but the aim is to focus. The aim is to concentrate. And because it's the mind, it's very potent. You're not analysing the thoughts. You're not assessing them. You're not labelling them. You're simply using that as your focus. So when you're doing that, then the question.
So you just let the thoughts pass by?
That's exactly right. You're learning to concentrate. So the aim has to be super concentration. Lama says not to be involved with even if it's angry thoughts or happy thoughts, doesn't matter. If they're delicious thoughts, ugly thoughts, it's not the issue. You're using the thoughts themselves as the focus of your concentration. That's the exercise. Hang on. That's the exercise. And the aim is not to make the thoughts go away. The aim isn't to know the thoughts. The aim is to get concentration. And the goal is, as you do develop concentration, because the mind is the object of your focus, then inevitably at some point it'll become calmer, and then you'll experience this more subtle level of mind called the clarity of the mind, which itself is subtle, but it's still only the conventional. Then you can be ready to start using the little analytical wisdom and the mindfulness fish business and identify the I. Understand? Yeah.
On top of that, from the experience of the concentration meditation that we did on Thursday.
I just wait a few minutes. Yeah, that's right. Thursday. What happened there?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, Thursday's your Friday, that's right, I forgot. Go on.
Our Friday.
Yeah, go on. Then,
So what I felt is that when I'm focusing on the thought,
Yeah.
it disappears, always.
I know, it's a bit confusing, it feels like it, doesn't it? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is it, I know, and it's an interesting experience, isn't it? But if you're really angry, it won't. It'll become shouting,
No, but can you refer to that on
What do you mean
the
refer
process?
to that? You just focus on the mind. Just do your best to say, focus on your mind. That's the answer. Let's see about what Lama says about the Mahamudra component now. Are we coming? I can't say more. Just keep focusing on the mind.
I'm happy.
I understand. So, okay, he says, all right. So again, the main meditation then is strong concentration on the clarity of your mind. That's having calmed the mind down quite a bit already, you know. But it's just the clarity of the mind. That is itself advanced. While you're doing this, your subtle analytical wisdom, a tiny part of your mind, like I said, your mindfulness fish, watches intently. And this is what it's doing. Two things together, the ideal, ready to capture the way that ego mind, that's Lama's, he makes up his own words, that's his term for ignorance, ego grasping, that ego mind perceives, the way that ego mind perceives the fantasy I, the self-existent I, and to simultaneously comprehend the non-self-existent I. So a way to say that easier than the purse, like there's my pink purse, it's easier purse. But let's say, you know, you've got the garden, another analysis, you've got the garden with these tiny plants all mixed together, and you don't know botany, right? So you wouldn't have a clue to know how to identify this really subtle herb. You can't, there's a more subtle one even, because all the thoughts are mixed together. So then the more, you know, someone says, please go and see if you can find me a piece of peppermint, you know? You understand? In the garden. But it's almost identical to something else, let's say. So it's obvious that the more you are equipped with knowledge about what a peppermint leaf looks like, the more you can then search for the peppermint leaf. And you know, let's say your friend says, no, I promise you, there are no peppermint leaves left, I really promise you. Don't bother looking, but you're determined to find one. Just say. So because it's so similar to the weed, initially you really can't look. So you've got to look so carefully. You've got to be watching with a tiny part of wisdom, watching carefully to be able to identify which piece is the peppermint, which piece is the herb. There's an assumption here that there is such a thing as a piece of peppermint, but still the same analysis. And once you're clear, once you're not sure, you know, you're not sure what the peppermint is. Sorry, you're not sure. But once you're clear, you keep checking the sources. That's peppermint. No, what's that? Is that peppermint? No. Here it is. You're sure on that piece of paper there's a drawing of the peppermint. Once you're clear exactly how to identify a piece of peppermint, then you look at the garden and you can say definitively there is no peppermint. But it's only when you can exactly identify the peppermint that you can decide there's no peppermint. Can you hear that point? This is the point here. If you're vague about what a peppermint leaf looks like, you will never know if there is a peppermint leaf there or not, will you? If you're vague about a peppermint leaf, you'll never know. It could be a peppermint, it could be the herb. But when you're crystal clear what a peppermint leaf is, you'll know immediately. Either there's two options. There is a peppermint leaf, or there is the emptiness of a peppermint leaf, which means there's no peppermint leaf. You get my point? And can you hear that point? So the clearer we are about what we think this ridiculous I is, which we believe in for eons, which runs everything, which even though it doesn't exist, it kind of causes all the problems. Once you're clear in your meditation, the mindfulness is watching like a hawk, watching like a mindfulness fish, checking for it. The clearer you are in your own meditation throughout your day-to-day life, you're checking it, because you don't just do this on your cushion. You do it every second. When he's mean to me, I'm checking, there it is, there's eye popping up, check it. You're in the car nearly crashes, you're checking the eye, you're doing this all day, it's your main practice, and it becomes natural. The more you do this, you build up better, and the more you study and understand what independent means. What you're looking for is an independent eye, an eye that doesn't depend upon this and doesn't depend upon that. It's highly sophisticated. The more this is clear, the more you're equipped in your meditation to then clearly identify, and then instantaneously you recognise it's not there. That the recognition of the emptiness of I equals your absolute clarity about what you think the I is. They come together. Or I'll explain what Lama Tsongkhapa says. Somebody had a question. What was it? Where? A hand. What? Yeah. Yes?
Maybe like tricky, but how can I have to see peppermint that exists?
We're talking, it's confusing to you. All I'm doing is talking about something that does exist.
Yeah.
That's easy, but still it's common. If you don't know what a peppermint leaf is... Okay, the simple point is, if you don't know what you're looking for, whatever it might be, you'll never know if it's there or not, will you?
Right.
That's all. That's all. So using an ordinary example of an ordinary thing that could exist, if once you know exactly what a peppermint leaf looks like, then you can decide if there is one in the garden or not. Can you hear that? Obviously not. What's your problem? What's your problem?
That I know how peppermint leaves look
If
like.
you know exactly what a peppermint leaf looks like, and then I say to you, go
No,
look
but
at
I
it.
can know that only after I saw peppermint.
Well, this goes without saying, you know. Then,
Okay,
no,
but
that's
if
why
we're-
that's why this is tricky, because we have believed since beginning this time. We act. It's like we're insane. It's like we are insane. We